Cyberbullying and Quebec's sovereignty movement. Let me explain. Last week, a nonpartisan group called OUI Québec published a report on what it will take to make Quebec a country. They consulted with experts from across civil society, teachers, engineers, doctors, lawyers, trade unions, chambers of commerce, you name it. The overwhelming consensus was this: the sovereignty movement needs to be more inclusive. Concretely, that means toning down the anti-immigration rhetoric and building bridges with communities who feel scapegoated by our politics. It means coming up with a unifying message and an ambitious societal project. You might think that's a pretty uncontroversial idea, but you would be wrong. Supporters of the Parti Québécois, which is never once mentioned in the report, by the way, immediately started attacking OUI Québec. This all began with, I really don't want to use this word to describe him, but the intellectual Mathieu Bock-Côté, who in a post on Facebook called OUI Québec useful idiots, unwittingly working for the cause of federalism. Bock-Côté said he was outraged that the group would attack the independence movement on the cusp of what is sure to be a PQ election win. He also shared a post from a PQ supporter who said, quote, "So the party that is leading in the polls should take advice from the back of the pack." In other words, the increasingly conservative PQ will decide what the independence movement is and how the independence project should be achieved. For the record, the PQ is polling at about 30% right now. That's significantly less than the 50% plus one they'll need to win a referendum. In this context, maybe calling allies in the movement useful idiots isn't the best strategic decision. But I digress. I spoke to someone from OUI Québec earlier this week, and he said they've basically gone into hiding to recuperate from days of unending hateful messages and threats in their inbox. These are people who, just like the PQ, want to make Quebec into a country. Let's talk about it.
I will say, if you're going to call me an idiot, at least call me useful.
I like that. Okay. We will definitely, every time we call you an idiot, we'll be like, but she's useful. She's handy.
I want to be good for something.
Yeah. She's always, you need a couch to move? Call Jules. By the way, Jules, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the animosity, the little sort of civil war within the sovereignty movement has been playing itself out for decades, right? It's not like, we tend to see PQ and sovereignty as meaning exactly the same thing, but like they've always been they were in the past a big tent party. You've got a conservative wing, you've got a progressive wing. The progressive wing kind of broke off to form Québec Solidaire. The conservative wing kind of broke off to form the ADQ and the CAQ in the 90s and 2000s. So what's left is this party that's trying to build its strength back up after a series of defeats, and it feels like they've only figured out how to build the anti-progressive, the sort of regressive part of the part, like that they've nailed. They have that on lock, and their entire strategy seems to be, we will not win without these conservative voices, so we have to excite their conservative passions. But in doing that, you're alienating all of these people who feel as though, hey, I want a French-speaking nation. I want for us to determine our future within Canada, but I maybe don't necessarily want to do it by alienating young people, by alienating immigrants, and like that's kind of what the PQ has become to a lot of people.
Yeah, it was interesting, the report that OUI Québec put out that you mentioned. There's a quote in there. They talked to all these civil society groups, and one person is just quoted as saying basically, like, we can't be dividing people. We have to be bringing people into this united movement, this big tent movement, separatism 2.0, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say, like, okay, the PQ has this regressive thing on lock, because I do local news. I don't really do too much at the National Assembly. But, when they've been in opposition to the CAQ, I think they have taken some more progressive social positions on various economic issues, social issues. They've pushed the CAQ on just underfunding the social safety net in various ways, right? So there is that kind of duality. For me, not being from here, not growing up here, it's been interesting to come and see, like, oh, okay, you can have a sort of anti-migrant stance, but for the Québécois de souche working class, you can kind of fight in a way that's almost a bit progressive. I don't know. I want you to help me make sense of that.
It's really hard to nail down their politics in a left-right. Traditionally, the Parti Québécois was a workers' party. The unions always endorsed them in every election. Almost all of the really great aspects about living in Quebec come because of the sovereignist movement. Like we have affordable childcare because of a Parti Québécois government. Our universities are much more inexpensive than in the rest of Canada because of Parti Québécois policies. They did carve out, there's like this golden era that they carved out of like a social progressive state in North America. But they after losing the referendum, they started kind of exciting that the conservative part of their base. And they started thinking like, well, the only way to win, like the only way to change anything is to be in power. And the way to be in power right now is, they embrace the conservative side of their movement. Like Lucien Bouchard, who used to be a progressive conservative in Ottawa, he joined, he became the PQ leader. And then eventually this party that's super pro-union goes and they elect Pierre-Carl Péladeau. He owns Québécois Media and he is notoriously a strikebreaker. When he took over at Journal de Montréal, like he broke their union. When he took over at Videotron, he broke their union. And the idea was like, well, we need to win. We need to win and we need something and someone different. And I think that you've made so many compromises in order to attain power in Quebec City that like those compromises are going to cost you that 50% you need for a referendum. Like it's hard to get 50% of Quebecers to agree on anything. Something so deep and potentially divisive, like you really do have to have a plan. And the sovereignty movement in the 90s was really a coalition of different groups. It was the Parti Québécois, but there were other more conservative elements and other more progressive elements that came together. I don't think the party today is there's a lot of online bullying. Like these 50 groups that were consulted, they all did so anonymously because they knew that if they put their name out there, they would be flooded with hateful messages. So I think there's an energy behind the party right now, and the party is doing well in the polls, but that energy comes at the expense of mass appeal.
Well, yeah, my question about the PQ is just like, how much do people actually want to vote for them versus they don't want to vote for the CAQ? Is it a question of PSPP being a star candidate or just, the CAQ kind of not, I don't know, people being tired of the CAQ, right?
I think that's like the story of Canadian politics, right? Like we don't really vote from like we're like in hockey, we're playing the trap. Like we're not necessarily playing to win, we're playing to not lose. And you look to the party that will not lose in the best way. And yeah, I think people will park their vote somewhere as an act of protest. I mean, Quebec en masse voted in the federal election in 2011. They voted for the NDP, right? Like in the Orange Wave. And a lot of those same voters who voted for progressive Jack Layton probably supporting either the CAQ right now or the PQ. Like it's very hard to put politics in this province in a box because people can hold certain progressive ideas like everyone deserves access to childcare and certain conservative ideas like keep those immigrants out of our country. Like it's people contain multitudes, and I think the PQ is no exception. But the party has become increasingly divisive. When PSPP emerged as the leader, he was very popular at first, but I think the more people got to see his approach to politics, the more people's views of him hardened. I think his unfavorability is higher than any politician in Quebec except for conservative leader Éric Duhaime. 47% of voters don't like him. That's a problem. Like, if you need to win over half of the province in a referendum, like, if 47% already either oppose you or strongly oppose you, like, it's really, there's not a lot of people who don't have an opinion on PSPP right now. Like, there's not much of a middle anymore. He has 34% support, which in Quebec is not bad, but you have 47% of people who don't like you. And I don't know what they're going to do, but I feel like this party has a ceiling, and I think they might be hitting it.
I don't know. I'm curious because he is a good politician, right?
Yeah.
He's a good politician.
He knows how to get on TV and he knows how to get free media, and whether it's for controversy or not, like people don't realize that when you're complaining about PSPP on social media, he's getting name recognition, and that's not nothing. But you're sorry, I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, I'm curious about the We Quebec thing, right? Like they opened this cafe on the Plaza Saint-Hubert. They're expanding, hosting rallies. Definitely, I'm seeing them on Instagram Reels. I'm seeing them on Tout le monde en parle, or maybe not We Quebec, but I don't know. Kinji 00 went on. He has his like very very Gen Z, like pro Quebec sovereignty music, which I guess like PSPP isn't listening to. Maybe he should.
It's not on his shuffle, no.
I listen to it as an Anglo in Montreal, so I feel like he can definitely take a moment to like put on the Spotify. But my question is just like, I read the We Quebec report, and look, I came out of it not really knowing still what they stood for. Like, I was like, okay, this is more progressive, right, than PQ. It's not anti-migrant. It's like, we got to build this big tent movement. You're here now. What are you going to do about it? It's about decentralizing power and getting people connected. Like, it seems to be more in the way of like participatory democracy, rebuilding the social safety net. Like, these are kind of strands. But because they're saying we're doing this broad-based consultation, it's not like we have a vision and an ideology that we're putting forth. This is our plan. Let's follow it. This is what a different Quebec could be. It's like, we need a vision of what a different Quebec could be. We need a Quiet Revolution 2.0, but we're not yet at the stage of saying what it will be. And that kind of is something that has, I don't want to say given me pause, but it's like, it's making me look at We Quebec in this way of not entirely being sure of what
they're being very careful. The report is very careful not to offend anyone. And when you do that, it's going to sound like gobbledygook. It's going to sound like anything, or nothing, right? It sounds kind of bland, but
it's a good blend.
It's a good blend. There's a few things in there, like we have as a society, we've become, in Quebec, we are terrified of taking on big projects. Because we got burned with the Olympic Stadium, because we've been burned with a lot of other infrastructure projects, because of all the corruption, people are worried that we can no longer, that we've outsourced all of our expertise to the private sector. And that's true. And so I think it's hard to sell people on the message of like, we need to maybe raise taxes in certain brackets. We need to spend more money on social services. We need to build up the infrastructure of a social city. That's not an exciting promise, and it's a promise that takes years to deliver. And I think a lot of our politics today, I mean, if you look at all of the economic platforms from, say, the big three parties, CAQ, PLQ, PQ, it's always like, a family of three will save $700 on, like, $700 is meaningless today, right? Like, if your kid can't see a doctor when they're sick, which, like, look, I have a kid. If she's really sick, we're not going to the emergency room because maybe we're going to miss 2 days of work. So you go and you pay $300 to see a private doctor. And like, that is the world that we live in now. And that's the world we live in, whether the CAQ is in power, whether the PQ is in power, or whether the PLQ is in power. We've only seen a deterioration of our services. Maybe under certain parties it's been slower than under others, but I think it's really hard to get people excited and energized about the government and this society being able to take on big, meaningful projects. And so, like, instead of speaking to the whole of society, which I think We Quebec is trying to do that, and you present them with this sort of like, let's please everybody message that ultimately rings hollow, right? It's like neoliberalism, like, let's be everything to everyone. Whereas the PQ is a party that is driven, like, we were talking about this earlier, there are 42,000 dues-paying members of the Parti Québécois. That is, first of all, that's great for fundraising. They raise more money than all the other parties. They have more members than the other two big parties have combined. So in a way, that's amazing because it makes your campaign a lot easier. You know where you're going to stop to refuel, to get that energy. You know who to visit. You have people who are going to knock on doors for you, but they're hardliners. They're paying to be in the PQ. They're people who have been in the movement since they were sort of young Maoists in the 1960s and 70s, and now they're slightly older and they have a more conservative, more defensive, more afraid view of the world. And I mean, that's a very long answer to your question, but I think that's sort of like, that's the two strategies. Try for broad appeal or get your base really, really excited, which the PQ has. Like, if you criticize PSPP online, you'll be overwhelmed. Like, Marie-Ève Coton is a doctor. She's a psychiatrist who works with patients in the North. She does amazing anti-colonial work. She takes care of people. She helps people heal from trauma. She's a good person. She also has political opinions. She has a page where she talks about politics. On her Facebook page where she talks about politics, she doesn't identify as a doctor anywhere. But people constantly go to that. Supporters of the PQ, they use the fact that she's a doctor. And in the last year or a year and a half, 7 people, and mostly supporters of the Parti Québécois, Jean-François Lisée, the former PQ leader, was one of them, have written to the Order of Physicians, and they have basically said this woman needs to be reprimanded because she's bringing disrepute to the entire profession, which is really fucked up. And when you think about that, like, that's what they do to their political enemies. There's no, I mean, of course, the people who joined the consultations are going to be anonymous. They don't want to get that experience. Of course, the report is going to be like the do backflips not to offend anyone, because you don't want that treatment either. I wrote earlier this year, I wrote a piece about how aggressive the PQ supporters are online. You can imagine what happened to me next. Like, you're getting a lot of like, hi, I know you've never talked to me, but I just want you to know I fucking hate you. Like, thanks a lot, Jean. Appreciate it. Please send some more. And he did. That was a super long answer to your question. I'm sorry.
I'm excited for Quiet Revolution 2.0.
I'm excited for when we're going to stop calling things 2.0. Like, I feel like that's a very, like, that was like edgy in the 2010s. We got to come up with maybe 2.5, 3.0, maybe do the Elon Musk thing, Quiet Revolution X.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. But no, I think that we are, like, as much as this place gives me anxiety, and as much as this whole conversation like gives me anxiety, I love Quebec. I love speaking French. I love the little differences of our society in North America. And I would love the idea of all of us working together to make sure that we have a fair and just and righteous place to live.